And we are live. Today, greetings, my hunters, and, well, today I have a special guest for you all. We have Iamamish, a Souls YouTuber, and a person who was happy enough to take their time off their busy schedule in order to join me on my podcast.
Hey, everybody. Hey, thanks for having me.
Darc? You there?
I think you may have lost him.
I think I might have hold that thought, guys, 1 second. We seem to be having technical issues again. Okay, there. I think that's the technical issues. Anyway, please, while we wait for Darc to return, do explain who you are. It would be great to help my audience in case they've never met you.
Yeah, sure. So I either go by Iamamish or more commonly Amish, just for short. And I've been making Dark Souls 3 videos now for probably almost 4 years. And I first got interested watching people like Nif. If people have been around a while, they'll know who Nif is. Nif kind of dropped from the scene a few years ago. He was a huge inspiration to me. It was really Nif, Shwa Akari, and Saint Riot were kind of the three people that really inspired me to want to make videos. And I started making videos about invasions and just been doing it for like 4 years, and here we are.
Interesting. Isn't it, Darc?
Yes. Very much.
Now, Amish, I have some questions for you. Did you manage to see the Elden Ring trailer?
Oh, yeah, of course. Actually, a funny story about that. I was on vacation when the trailer dropped, and I was actually driving down Interstate 70 through Colorado in the U.S., so I couldn't watch it, and we got stuck in a traffic jam, and traffic was at a complete standstill, so I was actually able to watch the trailer on my phone in the car on the interstate in a traffic jam. But yeah, I've definitely seen it.
And I gotta ask, last week, a couple of weeks ago, for those who, in case you didn't watch it, me, Darc, and Knight did a reaction on the trailer, as just because, you know, I'm still a Souls-related channel, and I gotta ask, what were the more highlight moments for you in that trailer? Because for me and Darc, it was basically the horse riding, the combat, and maybe those two. Anything to add on that one, Darc?
The design, as always. I personally like the Wolf Knight thing. I believe that was kind of my favorite part, other than the dragon.
Everybody loves the dragon.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I was super excited when I saw that. And I think probably for me, it was the boss design. And it's funny because I actually asked somebody, because I just got a PS5 2 days ago, and I was asking whether I should go play Demon Souls. And somebody said, well, even though you're more of a PvP guy, the PvE is really great. And, you know, I think it's probably easy to forget because my content is so PvP focused. I still really like the single player aspect of these games. I think they're really well designed, and the bosses coming in Elden Ring look like they're going to be amazing. And I think the size and scale of the game, I'm really looking forward to that too.
The joke I've always been making ever since that whole Elden Ring trailer was basically about how I feel like, well, looks like Miyazaki was taking some notes from Breath of the Wild, if you know what I mean. I know that you shouldn't compare Zelda to Elden Ring, but I feel like that's the best comparison I got.
I totally agree. And in fact, I mean, you can see how a game like this, has a lot of parents. It's obviously heavily influenced by Souls, clearly. Mm-hmm. You can also see like the Sekiro influences, which I think could be a good thing, kind of depending on how it plays out. And, you know, Miyazaki, I think is still underappreciated as a game designer. Even as popular as his games are, even as much as we all like his games, I think purely from a game design perspective, even today, I play Dark Souls 3, and I'm really struck by how well designed these games are. So I've never looked forward to a game like I'm looking forward to Elden Ring.
I think both me and Darc can agree with that. Personally, my favorite is Bloodborne. My favorite is definitely Bloodborne from its inception to design. But I can appreciate Dark Souls 3 a lot for its finality of the series as well.
Well, it's funny because Dark Souls 3 ends up being my favorite, but only because of the PvP. But if I were looking at these games strictly from a PvE perspective, Bloodborne would be far and away my favorite. I agree. It's a brilliant game.
Thank you. That warms my heart. Yeah, you kind of man. But besides, like, Dark Souls, do you have any other favorite games you like to play? Like, do you have any other games that on your free time?
Well, I mean, it's funny. I've talked to a lot of people about this, and I think my experience is not uncommon. Where I've played a lot of games, obviously, but once you get used to invading Souls games, there's really nothing else that scratches that particular itch. And it's funny because a lot of people in the community, they leave the game for a while, but inevitably they come back just because it's such a compelling experience. But I still like other games, and in fact, the games I've actually played even more than Dark Souls would be the Trials series, like Trials Evolution, if you're familiar with that game series.
I'm sadly not. So
No, sir, go ahead.
I'm sadly not familiar with these trial series, but continue on. Continue on. That I can ask some more questions about that series.
Yeah, so I mean, I'll tell you just a bit about it. Trials is like this superficially very simple game. You're on a bike and you're trying to get through a number of obstacles, and if you fall off your bike, it's a fault, and you go back to kind of the previous checkpoint, and your goal is to get through the levels as quickly as you can with as few faults as possible. And the controls are really just lean forward, lean back, gas, and brake. And it seems really simple, but even just that simple mix of controls enables you to have like an amazing amount of control over the bike. And you can watch, like on the leaderboards, you can see the players, like, and it depends on which game, which of the Trials games, but generally, like, the top 5,000 players or so, their actual playthrough gets persisted to the leaderboard. So you can go watch all these replays and just, be amazed at how good some of these people are. And I managed to get into like the top 1,000 out of, maybe like 1 million players, which, was still quite the achievement, but I was nowhere near the skill level of some of these top players. But very compelling gameplay. It's really challenging. The levels go all the way up. It's like easy, beginner, medium, hard, and extreme. And the extreme levels are quite extremely hard, like probably the hardest gameplay I've ever dealt with.
Oh, that sounds interesting. I might actually check out that series to see what it's like. I don't mind a little challenge after playing Dark Souls. I like a little challenge.
Yeah, especially if you have a PC. The game's a little older now. I think the game probably goes back to like 2015 or so. But Trials Evolution is one of the best ones in the series, and you can get it on PC for like $20 these days, or even on some of the older consoles, you can get it pretty cheap. So I recommend it to anybody that's even a little curious.
Oh, I will certainly give it a try. And so, anyway, you were also going to say other games you've played? I'm curious now.
Well, I've played all kinds of different games. I typically stay away from RPGs. I don't play a lot of sports games. I just got my PS5, so I picked up Ratchet and Clank. I've always been a big fan of that series.
I can relate to that. I played a lot of the Ratchet and Clank series.
Ratchet and Clank. That's a gaming series I thought I would never hear.
I guess I can agree that I love Ratchet and Clank. I think the last one I played was a PS3 one where we meet a pirate. I can't remember which one. It was where
I know the one you mean, but I don't remember the name either.
Yeah, that was the last one. But I did play the reboot, the Ratchet and Clank reboot. That was still a good game.
I think the Kraken time was probably one of my favorites. Going Commando goes all the way back to PS.
Kraken time.
Yeah, Kraken time might be my favorite one. But games like that I really enjoy. I love platformers. Actually, I just picked up what's it called? Cupcake, I think.
Okay.
No, not Cupcake.
Cuphead.
Cuphead.
Yes,
Yes,
Cuphead.
Cuphead.
I've heard of that one. That one is the difficult 2D quote unquote Souls-like.
It is. It's really tough, and I try to stay away from a lot of games these days that require like substantial time investments because I'm trying to do other things in life. I don't just want to play video games. And I remember playing like Super Meat Boy for the first time, and it just immediately I could tell the game was really compelling. It was really challenging, and I could see just being sucked into that world and just spending tons of time getting better at it. And I thought, you know what, it's just better if I don't. So I shut it off and I never went back.
Interesting. Actually, if I may ask some more questions, Amish, have you seen the Final Fantasy Origins trailer?
You know what? I've never played any of the Final Fantasy games. For whatever reason, I never got too much into RPGs. And I know a lot. I actually was watching St. Riot stream one of the Final Fantasy games the other day, and it looks kind of cool. But it just, again, because it seems like there's a lot of time that you have to invest in these. So I just try to pick pretty carefully where I spend my time on games. But they do look cool.
You're not wrong on that one, and I think Darc can also agree with this one, that the Final Fantasy series has a bad habit of being overly long. A bit too long sometimes when the story department.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm asking you this because, you see, a couple of weeks ago on my podcast as well, I kind of brought up the fact that I was jokingly thinking that there would be a Final Fantasy Souls-like, and Darc had confirmed this one. Yes.
I do not like that idea.
Yes. And a week after I did my podcast, I found on the news Final Fantasy Origins, a Souls-like developed by Koei Tecmo, the same people who did the Neo series, Samurai Souls.
Now, I played Neo 1. I didn't finish it. It got kind of repetitive. I've heard Neo 2 is a lot better. I may end up getting that at some point. But you're saying there is a Final Fantasy game coming out that purports to be Souls-like?
Yep. Yep. Though I feel like, when I saw the gameplay trailer, honestly, it looked like a mix between Neo, it looked like a combination of Souls and Gaiden, Ninja Gaiden, or Gaiden, or however you pronounce it. I'm gonna get butchered out of this. But yeah.
Yeah, I do know those games. Every time a game claims it's going to be Souls-like, I almost always end up being disappointed in it because I'm not even really sure what it means to be Souls-like. I think a lot of people think it just means making the game hard. But, anybody can make a game hard. It's how do you make a game that's hard but compelling enough that you still want to persevere and get through to the other side. That's what's hard.
For me, the definition of a Souls-like is basically brutal difficulty, but with an engaging, mysterious story, excellent environmental designs, interconnected worlds. So like a Metroidvania, the Souls series are Metroidvanias. Even though some people don't like to admit it, they are.
You're getting a fair challenge.
Yes, and challenge.
Yeah, I agree with that definition, I think. But you hit on it, right? It's got to be compelling. It's got to be engaging. And a lot of time, and even the combat, I think the combat often gets overlooked, even just like the PvE combat. But getting that to feel right is really difficult. And getting all the weapons to kind of balance out. Ultra great swords aren't too fast, but they do a lot of damage, but still making daggers viable. Like balancing all those weapons out, and we can argue about how well balanced they are, but I think they're pretty well balanced. There's room for improvement. That's not easy to do. And again, it's why I credit Miyazaki with being just such a great game designer.
I think I can agree. I think it's also the fact that why I'm always put off with other Souls-likes, like Code Vein, correct?
I do.
Yes, I've seen gameplay trailers of that. No, I've also seen gameplays, and I really didn't like it because to me the weapons look too floaty, if you know what I mean. That there's no solid impact to the weapons. They feel like you just float.
Exactly, and that's the part that's really challenging to get that feedback and for those weapons to feel right. And I think too often when people talk about a Souls like, they're focused on the superficial aspects and not enough on these just being amazing games first and foremost. And some of those other things like the difficulty, it's not implemented well, or the weapon systems.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Darc, could you continue on for a second? I just need to do something quickly. I just need to... Darc?
Yes, hi, I'm here. Yes.
Another thing I'm curious about is like...
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to figure out my internet.
Yeah, don't worry, I know that feeling sometimes, Darc. Sorry, I'm just... Sorry. Anyway, lost my train of thought for a second. But what I was trying to also ask is like, what got you what's like in your going back to what you like to do with the PvP aspect of the Dark Souls series? What is your best tactic for anybody who's watching to when you played Dark Souls PvP? Because I would admit I suck at PvP. I'm getting a little bit better at it, but I just can't figure it out.
Yeah, and I struggled with some of the same problems because there's no manual, and I remember first dueling in Dark Souls 3, and I would always think to myself like, how do I know when I should attack, or how do I know when I should do certain things? And I couldn't really figure it out, and I didn't think too deeply about it at that point. But I started watching some videos, like some of these old school guys like Damn No HTML, who's since left the game, actually he left the game years ago. He used to talk about, in his videos, he just kind of ramble and talk about his approach to combat and spacing and what was safe and what wasn't. Fundamentally, it's about reading your opponent's intentions and having good spacing and good timing and knowing your weapons. There's really no shortcut. You just have to have a lot of experience with it and learn from your mistakes.
That's actually good.
You have to move a lot.
I do try to move a lot, but when I try it, I just basically I rush in too much, and rushing, that's my problem. Hey, Darc, how do you play PvP in Dark Souls 3?
Summed up, I suck.
I guess you got two guys. Sorry.
You have to play people that are better than you, and you have to try to when things don't go right and you lose, analyze your mistakes. So just like you were saying, you said I rush in too much. Okay, well then that's definitely something that some players do. They're too aggressive. So you have to learn, okay, when's it appropriate to be aggressive, and when do I have to temper that aggression? Can I feint maybe and make my opponent think I'm coming in to be aggressive and outspace them? It's actually interesting you say that your mistake is you're too aggressive, because the more common mistake is that people are too passive. They're afraid to interact because they're afraid, they're going to make a mistake, and understandably so, because especially new players will make a lot of mistakes. But I think being aggressive is good. I think that's something that you want to hold on to. You just have to learn how to appropriately be aggressive, if that makes sense.
I kind of get what you mean. You keep that aggressiveness, but think before you act on that aggressiveness.
Yeah, exactly. And the good players, there's this common misconception that the way to be really good at Dark Souls is to be super passive. And there's a hint of truth in that, in the sense that the game often rewards the second move, or that when you move first, you open yourself up to retaliation, being whiff punished, and the like. But the very top players are all like fearlessly aggressive. You won't see it in like a tournament because they're up against equally good opponents, and so they have to be careful. But when I did a series of videos where I would go and I would have fights with some of the top players in the world, and of course I just got destroyed fight after fight after fight. But I learned a lot. And one of the first things I learned is that these guys, once they understood my play style, they were able to translate that into extreme aggression against me. And I was really not accustomed to that. So tempering your approach to what the other player is giving you, but being aggressive is great.
Thank you. That was actually pretty good advice.
Yeah, and fight better players. Fight better players, but don't fight players that are too much better. Because if they're that much better, you won't learn anything. But fighting players that are a little bit better than you, that's really great.
Yeah, fun little fact. When Vadividya was actually holding a tournament for basically prizes from Xbox, PS3, PS4, Xbox One, and PC. Funny fact, I actually was able to, and I really wish I recorded that moment. I was able to basically get one of the what were they called again? The people I'm supposed to basically defeat. And funny enough, they were actually before the guy moved on to the next area, and I was able to summon him before he was able to summon his guardian. And then I basically just killed him because the whole point was that the targets were not supposed to have able to fight back, so it was just basically me chasing him around. Funny enough, I was using Orenstein's spear. I was basically cosplaying as Orenstein because I thought it was pretty funny.
That's funny.
I haven't seen blasts like that since Taco Night at James Earl Jones's house.
Yes, but I don't know if you heard about this as well, Amish. But have you heard about the recent rumors of a Bloodborne TV series?
And there's been a lot of, I've heard rumors about a Bloodborne TV series. I've tried to temper my excitement a bit because I'm still a little bit skeptical about that, but I think that would be pretty cool. Who knows if I would love to see a second Bloodborne. I think everybody would, or even just like a patch. I know a lot of people would love to be able to play Bloodborne in 60 frames a second.
Believe it or not, you're gonna be getting that, but not through a patch for Bloodborne.
How so?
Basically, Sony's going to resell it as a remaster for the PS5.
Is that confirmed, or you think?
I've been reading articles all over the place about it, about how that also in the works. There's also a new, a rumored PS5 exclusive by From Software called Scarlet Veil.
Interesting. Well, if you look back at Bloodborne's history, it's kind of, people have wanted a sequel, but Bloodborne is kind of unique in the sense that, let's face it, Sony paid From Software to make a console exclusive to try to sell consoles. And in that respect, it was incredibly successful. But as a game developer, when you're confined to only one platform, that's a lot of foregone revenue, right? Because nobody on that has an Xbox or PC is going to be able to play the game. So in order to justify making a game under those circumstances, you have to get a pretty sweet deal from the from the console manufacturer, Sony in this case. And at the time, From's sort of stock was increasing. They were being better known. People could see that time and again they were making these high quality games. I don't think Sony could very easily get From to make another console exclusive. They just have to pay them so much money because they could go do something else and sell it on all consoles and presumably make more money. Because the amount of time and effort that goes into these games these days, especially the art, the animation, the marginal cost of porting that to another platform is relatively low. So I don't see too many console exclusives from third parties like that anymore. But if what you're saying is true, maybe From does have works. I could certainly see Sony wanting some like that to sell PS5s.
You want me to tell them, or should I?
You.
All right. First, a company makes an exclusive. There's going to be a lot of other pissed people when they ever can't put that exclusive whenever it's coming the next coming of Jesus Christ. And trust me, I was one of them.
Mm-hmm. Let's take the hello, Amish. You still there?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
still here.
Okay, just making sure. But I agree when when Bloodborne came out 5 odd years ago, 6 odd years ago now.
Yeah, 2015, I think.
Yeah, 6 years ago. I remember a lot. I wasn't well. Truth be told, well, I remember reading a lot of forums of basically how people from, especially Xbox players and PC players, wanted to basically have the game on their platform. So, you had the Xbox fans saying that, hey, this game shouldn't be an exclusive, and you have the PC players also saying it should be exclusive, and it was a real headache in the forum wars for a bit.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And
no question. I mean, this problem is largely solving itself, right? Because if you think about it, games that were developed, let's say 10 years ago, any game requires a mix of programming effort, like creating the engine and those sorts of things, and then a mix of art and art creation and animation and like. But as the resolutions in games have gone up, the amount of time that goes into a game that consists of art creation, animation, and the likes is a much higher percentage of the game. And as that's the case for porting a game like that to multiple consoles is much stronger. And in fact, if you look at consoles from 15, 20 years ago, a lot of the games were exclusives to each console. They didn't bother porting them to other consoles. And that relationship is almost inverted now, where it's very rare to see true console exclusives unless they're first-party games, like a Microsoft game or a Sony game.
Well, even that's being a bit fishy, because considering the fact that you can buy the entire Halo collection on Steam now. So that was...
Well, because they have the console exclusivity of Halo has served its purpose, right? They're not going to sell another Xbox 360 because of Halo. So at this point, it makes sense to go ahead and release it on PC. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if something like that happened with Bloodborne in the future, because they're not trying to sell PS4s anymore.
And true. But actually, going along those rumors, I also heard a rumor that along with the remastered, Bloodborne is getting a PC port. So, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to be buying the PC port again.
Yeah, I've been actually expecting this for some time. I expect that we will see a PC port of Bloodborne at some point. And now would really be the perfect time, because, again, the entire point of Bloodborne was to sell PlayStation. And I don't know the data, but I can think that Bloodborne moved a lot of PS4s, a lot of them.
Considering this was a big surprise after how... remember, we all know the story of Demon Souls, right? How it was basically Sony thought the game was going to be a flop and no one had the faith in the game. It was a complete and utter mess, design-wise and marketing-wise. And the fact is that how after basically how I was going to say Demon Souls did sell decent, and even though... And I do hope maybe that thanks to the Demon Souls remake, we maybe get a Demon Souls 2, because Miyazaki did plan on making a sequel to it, but he couldn't because of licensing issues. Sony owned the IP. But if, Demon Souls does get a sequel, I will not be complaining.
But see, I think this actually goes back to the original point. Precisely because Sony owns the IP means any Demon Souls sequel would probably have to be a Sony exclusive. There's no way Sony's going to allow them to make that multi-platform. And so if you're you have to ask yourself, what would I rather do? Would I rather make another Dark Souls or another new IP, that both of which you can sell on any console, any platform, or make Demon Souls 2, which you can only sell on the PlayStation? Right, and so that's the tough business decision that stands in the way of a Demon Souls 2.
But still, compared to studios, say I don't know, Ubisoft or Activision or even Infinity Ward, I know From has a lot of pedigree on its side, so they'll make their money back pretty quickly, one way or another.
That's true. That's true. But at the end of the day, if even if you're making a lot of money, if you can make even more than that, you would have to really want to make a Demon's Souls 2 to forego all that extra revenue you would get from making a multi-platform game. And let's face it, like From has really impressed me, because not only have they shown that they could take the Dark Souls series and be successful with it and grow the franchise and continue to make cool game after cool game. Even Dark Souls 2, which is kind of the outlier, is still a great game. It's just arguably not as great as Dark Souls 1 and 3, but they've done Bloodborne, which I think is their best game, at least from a PvE perspective. They've done Sekiro, which I actually think was not as good as some of their others, but was still a fantastic game. They've just demonstrated a consistent ability to deliver amazing games, and there aren't many studios that can say that.
I think it's the only I think the reasons why they actually have they don't actually have like large expectations for the games. Like they think this game's going to sell millions and millions of copies. It's going to make us rich. No, they make games that are appropriately sized. They know they have a fan base, a very dedicated fan base. Let's face it. I'm gonna buy Elden Ring, even despite the fact I don't know if it's gonna be good or not. I'm gonna buy it because
right.
I want to play it. And yes, I know I'm painting my expectations before the whole game comes up. But from what I've seen and from track record, minus Dark Souls 2, which is debatable, I have good confidence that this game will probably be. And even as a big Bloodborne fan, I think it could even rival Bloodborne in a lot of ways with how the scope, the setting. Remember, it's got two pedigrees to it: George R. R. Martin and Miyazaki on the helm. So this might actually be something great.
I agree, and I think I'll tell you something. I never pre-order games because. I got burned by this once years and years and years ago. Some game, it looked like it was going to be really cool. I can't even remember what it was called, but I pre-ordered it and it ended up being not that great. The reviews came out, the day or two after it was released, and the game kind of got crucified. And I realized if I just waited, I would have had a much better idea and I would have bought it. But to me, From has earned that. Like, I will definitely be buying Elden Ring. I mean, there's just no way I can imagine I wouldn't. In fact, I'll probably end up getting it for both PS5 and PC, just so that, I can hang out with different friends of mine online and play the game with different groups of people. So for sure, I'll be doing that. And I share your hopes. I do think, though, I'm interested to see what the influence is from George Martin. I think it's probably not going to be that big an influence. I think he really just kind of set some of the lore and background, some of the names of the characters, maybe a little bit about the environments, but I think probably in terms of the overall story and the game, my guess is it's probably like 1% Martin and 99% Miyazaki, but that's kind of a guess.
And I've got to submit that Sekiro was my first ever game I pre-ordered.
Yep.
Yeah. I normally don't pre-order games because I thought, I'd rather just wait until the reviews come out and then see how it looks. Because if this is like a big investment, I'm going to be spending like $60 on a game. But I hands up guiltily, I pre-ordered Sekiro Shadows Die Twice before the game came out and before even reviews. And I didn't feel bad about it. And again...
Something else weird has happened in the video game industry. It used to be that if you didn't pre-order a game, you might actually have a hard time finding a copy come launch day, or even like that week, or even a few weeks after that. But mass producing CDs and Blu-rays is dirt cheap. And so, any game developer that's launching a game, the cost of not having enough copies is so much higher than the cost of potentially producing too many. So they're always going to overproduce on these things. And I know, I've had the experience of going into GameStop a couple times on launch day for popular games and asking for a copy. And then they'll go through this whole song and dance about asking me whether I pre-ordered a copy. And then when I say no, they'll act like they're not sure they have a copy for me, but they'll have to look around and check. And meanwhile, you can see there's boxes and boxes sitting around with copies of the game in it. So, plus, come game day or launch day, I don't know where I'll be, right? I might be at Target, I might be at GameStop. and I'd rather have the flexibility to buy wherever I am rather than having to make a special trip. But that said, Elden Ring may be the one exception because I would not want to risk on launch day them not having a copy. And to your point, I think From's earned it. They've really delivered across so many games.
Yes, I think yes, that is very true, and I'm just so conflicted. I just want to buy it, but at the same time, I gotta not spend money at the same time. So I'm very conflicted on whether I should pre-order it. This is always the case when you're not that rich. But even then, like for me, I used to live in England, and the only place you can get games were either at large supermarkets like Tesco's or Tesco's mainly, or you can buy them at Game, which is the UK's own version of GameStop. So,
I was in London like 3 years ago. 3 or 4 years ago, and actually had an opportunity to meet up with some of the folks in the Dark Souls 3 PvP community, which was pretty cool, and I had a lot of fun there. I really love the UK.
Oh, thank you. Used to live there for 3 years. You lived there for 7 years.
I can think of many worse places to live.
That's true.
Yeah, America's burning on fire right now, so don't blame me. I have nothing to do with it, I swear.
And yes, Darc is our lovable joke teller, which I don't mind. Actually, kind of brings up the mood in the streams. That's why I keep him on.
What's that smell? Oh wait, that's just me burning alive. All right, hold on, I'm gonna get a fire stick. Be right back.
See what I mean? But yes, I was also curious. Did you? No, I appreciate. And I have to. We're not stopping at all. But I have to thank you so much, Amish, for taking the time out of your busy schedule to pop on my small channel, even though I'm very small, and to take out the time to join my podcast for just this one time. Thank you very much. I appreciate it deeply.
Oh yeah, it's my pleasure. Thanks for offering and having me.
The pleasure is all mine.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyway, I was curious. Do you all know of the director? I love Miyazaki. After Dark Souls, for me personally, after finishing Dark Souls 3 and Sekiro. Well, it was a time after Dark Souls 3. You know, that dark times with no more souls. Oh, that was dark times, wasn't it?
5 years, man.
Yeah.
It's been a long time.
5 years without a Souls. I actually had to quench my thirst by playing some Souls-likes from other game developers, but I did play one game that's actually gotten me into the series, surprisingly enough. You've heard of the game called Nier Automata, right?
I have heard of it.
That's great. So, have you ever tried it or thought of playing it?
I've thought of playing it. I have not played it. There's so many games out there that I would like to play. And I actually, truth be told, over the last 5 years, I probably haven't bought more than like 5 or 6 new games, just because I end up with like a stack of games that I haven't played already. I've got a huge Steam library that I occasionally go into. So it usually takes something special for me to go buy a game, either something that's, really, really well regarded. But that game in particular you mentioned, I have heard really good things about it. In fact, I think it has a really high Metacritic score, doesn't it?
I have played the game personally. It's Platinum Games, right? You've played like Bayonetta or even the Devil May Cry series before Team Clover got shut down.
Yep, I have.
Well, if you basically, I would recommend Automata a lot because it is a frankly very good game. It's got great combat, a very interesting story, I dare say, and it basically has interesting lores and characters. Tasty thighs notwithstanding.
Yeah, so I have that trailer up on my other monitor here, and I'm kind of watching it here while you're talking about it. And the reviews are really great. So I don't know. I might end up picking this up. Did they by chance do anything for this game for PS5, like any kind of frame patches or anything like that?
I'm not too sure about that, but I think they did put a frame patch on it because it would be rather silly not to put a game like that. It was well received. You can also get it on PC if you're also curious.
Yeah, actually, the first thing that came up in my Google search results was the game on Steam. So I don't know. I would definitely think about taking a look at this.
Well, thank you. It is a very good series, and definitely worth your time if you like twists and turns and, like... Anyway, sorry. I just like to talk about that series a little bit.
Yeah, no worries. I get it.
Yeah.
It's always cool when you find a game that
A
you
little
really
bit
like.
meaning a lot.
Yeah. But yes, going back to Dark Souls...
Also, can I have to say, I love your jacket, man. I love your jacket.
This?
Love it.
It's a jumper.
Oh,
not
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a jumper, not a jacket.
Well, whatever it is, I love it.
I bought this for 30 quid.
Nice.
I like... Well, it was on sale, and I like Dragon Ball. Don't shoot the messenger. Don't shoot me for liking having my tastes.
Also, I have one more question for you, Mr. Iamamish. What do you think of the PvP is going to be like in Elden Ring? Do you have any
I should have asked
theories
that.
as to it?
You know, that is the $1,000,000 question, right? Because I'll tell you a pattern that I've observed, which is I've seen other content creators who make Souls content, especially PvP focused. They'll generally make a following for themselves, and then the next Souls game comes out, and they end up bailing on it really early. And it tells me that when you develop skill for one of these games, and then the combat mechanics change a lot, I think it just turns people off. Not necessarily because it's bad or worse; it's just not what they're used to. And so there's part of me that's afraid that that's what's going to happen to me when I get to Elden Ring. Is it's just going to be different, and I'll find it off-putting. That said, watching the videos, looking at the move sets, it looks like they're going to reuse a lot of the combat from Dark Souls. So I expect I'm going to like it, and my hope is it's going to be different enough to be interesting, but similar enough that some of my skills that I've developed in Dark Souls will convert over. But who knows? I'm sure there's a lot we won't know until we play.
Surprisingly enough, you're half right, actually. The whole it's actually taking bits of Dark Souls and a bit of Sekiro and mashing it up together.
I agree with that 100%. I think that's quite what it's going to be. So it's going to be interesting. Like, in the videos, if you watch the trailer, some of the weapon arts, in fact, I think all the weapon arts that I saw in there are pulled directly from Dark Souls 3. Which, makes sense. You're trying to reuse some of those animation assets. And in Dark Souls 3, a lot of the animations came straight out of Dark Souls 1.
Bloodborne. There was actually...
Yep, and Bloodborne. Yep.
We can agree that From is very ecological with its content, right, guys?
Yeah, they're very efficient about it.
Oh, yeah.
As long as it's good, I'm fine with that.
That's great. That's good. What else? Oh, I gotta ask you, what was your first Souls experience when you first played Dark Souls 1? That's that's a question I'd like to know, because each of us have a different experience when we play this game, because, we're different people. But I want to curious, what was your first experience when you went through all that agony and completed Dark Souls 1 and defeated Gwyn? Spoilers alert.
I was pretty bad at it, to be honest, but I had a lot of fun with it. I think I played just like a bog standard sort of knight build, and I was the guy walking around holding up his medium shield everywhere. And I played it very slow and safe. I was always peeking around every corner and drawing enemies with a bow and just plodding through it like that. I never played any of the PvP though in Dark Souls 1 when it came out, and in Dark Souls 2 I did a bit of the Bell Tower Covenant. But it really wasn't until Bloodborne I started to get more interested in the PvP, and then Dark Souls 3, that was when I started invading. I hadn't really done that in Bloodborne. I was just pretty much like a duelist, to the extent that you can be a duelist in Bloodborne. But yeah, it's just been kind of like an iteration.
Yeah, I'm curious.
I thought invaders were griefers, to be honest with you.
Well, it depends on who you... It depends. Some players are griefers that just basically come to ruin your day, basically by killing you. And there's some people are honorable duelists that do bow and get ready to basically then flatten you with their their 10 plus ultra
and then
great swords.
there's that one guy that comes down from the sky and then basically goes, hey, so I'm here for my souls, thank you very much. And then the other guy flies away to the moon. No joke, that's exactly what happened to me on one video.
Are you guys familiar with Fighting Cowboy, the content creator?
Sadly, no. I might have to check him out now.
So Fighting Cowboy is a pretty huge YouTuber, and I was watching his Let's Play or walkthrough of Dark Souls 3 because I had already beat the game once or twice, and of course I knew there were a ton of things I must have missed. So I was trying to get the inside scoop on what sorts of things I'd missed. And I remember at the end of his walkthrough, he said, well, we're going to wrap up the walkthrough, and then we'll probably jump into some invasions. And I remember thinking, wait, you invade? I thought that was only griefers and malcontents that did stuff like that. But it really opened my eyes to the fact that it's a mechanic like anything else, and plenty of normal people do it. And that's how I really got hooked on the invasions.
Now, some people agree. Some people invade just to make other people's days miserable. Other people just want to have the fun of just fighting other people, or just people are just curious about the mechanic and just do it. It's all depending on the people. And you just do it because you want to have a fight with other players. And that is a very noble thing.
Exactly. And the truth is, Dark Souls 3 in particular, if you want to grief people, the way to do it is to get a gank squad together and gank the invaders. Because if you want to grief people as an invader, you're going to have a tough road in front of you, unless you build an ultra twink and try to go after new players at high wall. But outside of that, you're not going to have a lot of griefing opportunities in that game as a red.
Yeah, thanks. Well, depending if you're purple.
Yes.
I mean,
that's fair.
I think about it. I think From made a... Yes. Thinking about it, I think From missed a golden opportunity to make Invaders red and Helpers blue. Red versus blue, like Team Fortress 2. Hey, that rhymes. But I thought...
Well, I think if you look, I think Dark Souls 3, I think the development kind of got cut a bit at the end. I think it was a race to the finish. And one of the things that got cut, I think the Covenants got short shrift. There's essentially, you've got Blue Sentinels and Dark Moon that basically are the exact same Covenant. There's really no difference between them.
Except the blue, because one's a lighter blue, the other's a darker blue. Anybody's going to notice that.
Yep. And I think From probably planned to do more with the Covenants than they had an opportunity to do. So I'm hoping that the Covenants are a bit stronger, more tied into the game, offer more interesting variety in Elden Ring.
That's always a possibility. Whew. Did you say you could only be on for 50 minutes? I just want to make sure I don't go over time for you.
I really appreciate that. I can hang here for about an hour total, so I got probably, let's call it another 10 minutes or so, and then I probably need to get going.
That's what I think. Thank you. I was just making sure so that way I don't overtake your time, because again, I am thankful very much for joining my for my podcast. I love having guests on my podcast. Makes things far more interesting. Not that you're not interesting, sure. Darc. Don't get it knickers in a twist.
Yeah, that's fine, man.
It's a British saying, just don't get angry.
I am familiar with the knickers in a twist.
No, it was the Darc, in case he didn't get it.
Okay.
Anyway. Let me think. Thinking about it, there's been so many Souls-likes since Dark Souls. Just one more thing before I wrap things up. You haven't there. Hello? Am I lagging out again?
No, sorry, I missed the question.
Yep.
I said ever since would you say that Demon Souls or Dark Souls popularized it? Because Demon Souls was technically the first in the series. Well, you can.
Dark Souls, man. I hate to tell you, it's Dark Souls.
Unless you want to be super pedantic and you say, well, it was actually Kingsfield, which was the original Souls-like. And for
But
those
I
who,
mean, I think it's just been something that's happened over time, right? Like I think with each successive game that's come out, more and more people have jumped on, more telling their friends about it. I think especially like around Dark Souls 2. I think Dark Souls 2 is when they introduced the downscaling mechanism with passwords, where because like in Dark Souls 1 it was tough to play with your friends, and some of the newer games you have the password system and you can come in with any build. So if you've got a soul level 90 and your buddy starts the game and he wants somebody to play with, well, he can summon you and you don't have to go and create a brand new build or worry about keeping your soul levels in sync. And I think that's made the game much more accessible, which I think is great, having more people playing along. But I think each game has contributed to bringing new, ever more people on board, and I'm really hopeful that with Elden Ring that trend will continue.
anyway, I think this will be a wrap. And to any hunters that have gotten this far, I appreciate it. And thank you very much, Amish, for joining me on my podcast. I appreciate it very much. It was an honor talking to you. Before you leave,
thanks so much for having me.
No problem. Before you leave, do check out my channel down below. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this podcast. Do share this about to other friends. Do check out Darc's and, of course, Amish's channel, and links down to my Discord if you want to join. Thank you very much. Amish, Darc, pleasure. Amish, thank you very much.
Hey, thanks, guys. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Hey, you as well, man. All right, see you.